All right, welcome to the Planting Seeds podcast. I have a new friend joining me
Hi.
today. Everybody can get to know Joel Conwell today. Joel, tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Joel Conwell. My last name actually is Archiri, but as Jeff and I were talking about before the podcast, it's really hard for people to pronounce that and or spell. So I go by J Conwell is my writing name. I'm out of South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, the better Carolina. Better taxes is in this area at least. But also, I live here with my three kids. I have two girls and a boy. So I've got a 6, a 5-year-old, and then a 1-year-old. And then I'm married. I've been married for over 11 years, which sounds weird to say because it makes me feel very old. But it's even interesting now as writing books for kids. I'm like, man, I feel so old. Like I feel so old when I write books for kids, and then I go to these events, and I'm like, I'm the old person now.
Well, at least you're writing books for people that want to read it in your house, because the books I read are for people running companies, and there's nobody in my household running.
Hey, look, I get it, man. When I always joke, people ask us like, is this the first book you ever wrote? And I was like, no, I wrote a corporate culture book, and I realized no one ever reads those. So I decided maybe I should write something else. And that's honestly like how I got started into. There's multiple kind of forays how I found myself in writing for writing kids books. But I'd written a corporate culture book based on some psychological principles that I had learned when I was in grad school. So I have a master's in counseling. And then I'd entered into tech and the workforce, and I realized there was just a lot of the issues that you saw, a lot of the buzzwords that you heard, toxic, culture, work culture, whatever, right? All that you would hear really just stemmed from a lack of people understanding who they were and living out of that. Like there was a lack of certainty, and then people would just live out of that lack of certainty, and that would create these environments that were toxic, in quotes, right? And so I tried to write a book about that. And I developed a tool that helped people kind of work through that. And it got zero traction, which is fine. I'm not a CEO of a company. I'm not this big name person. I was just this random guy putting out a book. But what I did realize was, I'm like, man, I read so many kids' books to my kids. And I read the same kids' book to my kids all the time. I'm like, I am a captive audience that someone is writing for. I'm like, not just my kids, but for me. And I thought, what if I wrote better books? Then not that there aren't good kids books out, but books that actually helped unpack the emotional intelligence aspect that I was trying to get to when it came to like writing for corporate culture and those people that are my age or maybe older. But what if I could write a book that actually tapped into that, but also used that captive audience of, well, you're already going to be reading it to your kids. So it's going to be something that also you start to go, oh man, I identify with. And so that was kind of already in my mind as I was thinking about writing kids books. And then The Boy in the Tree, which is my first kids book that I've come out with, one among many. It's going to be of many, right? I was in counseling myself for working through emotional intelligence stuff and working through past trauma, in quotes. And my counselor was, and I was going to say this when at the event, but I had food poisoning and I couldn't, I had stomach bug, couldn't go. But I was going to say, like, yeah, my counselor said, let's talk through like we'll do an inventory of all your trauma and, what's the earliest trauma? And I go, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to say? He's like, well, what happened when you were younger that you didn't like? And I think, I got stuck in a tree. And he goes, let's talk about that. Let's focus on that. Lo and behold, that's actually what was like the first concussion of many, of where I was so embarrassed. I got stuck in a tree that my friend saw. My dad had to save me, that I never wanted to be embarrassed again. And as a result, that was this is how I'm going to control everything. And I still have had to wrestle against that, like almost incessant need to control things. And I remember my counselor then said, well, hey, why don't you write a poem? Because you've already written a book and you write music. Why don't you just write a poem? And I said, yeah, okay. Like maybe I'll process it that way. And I bring it back to him. He loves it. He said, this is so good. You should finish it. I finish it. And he goes, well, now you need to publish this as a kid's book. And like that, it was the cool thing about all the different things that have been happening. I'd already published a book, which is something that I try to encourage people. Like, if you are thinking about publishing a book, just do it. Because what really is interesting is it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Just start. You can get better later. But the problem is, far too often you're thinking that the first one's going to be this amazing thing, or it needs to be this amazing thing, and in reality the second one is the one that was really going to be it, but because you never started, you never got there. And I needed to publish that first corporate culture book to know that I could do it. And then when someone says you should write and publish this kids book, my immediate thought is, I don't know. My immediate thought is, yeah, okay, I'll do it. right? And so that's what happened. So then, even like last week, I actually presented the book back to my counselor, and I was like, here it is. Like after a year or so of time, you were the one who told me to do it. Here it is in a physical copy, right? A hardcover copy in your hands. And so like that is, I mean, I know you asked like, tell me about yourself, about who you are. That really is who I am. It's like, if someone ever tells me, hey, if you want to get from A to C, you need to do B. I'm like, all right, I'll do B. Right. And once I've done B, if someone says again, hey, you want to get to C, you got to do B. I'm like, well, I've already done B. So yeah, I'll do it again. And that's kind of like that's how I grew up. I'm from the North, although I live in South Carolina. My parents are from Jersey and Penske. And so there's a very Northern mentality of the like, yeah, you just grind it out and you go and you just do what you can. And if someone says, I don't know, you're like, well, let's at least try it, So sorry, that was a long answer to probably the shortest question you ever asked.
Well, no, you answered about 5 of my questions, so that's pretty good.
You tell I've had a podcast before. Like I've already know where you're going. I'm like, yeah, here we go.
You referenced that you couldn't make it to the event, so I'll just for everybody that's watching this or listening, we had a kickoff event for Little Ripple. So Ripples Media is the publishing company that I'm so grateful to be a part of with some amazing people, and we've been publishing, adult books, if you will, for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And we're now branching into a children's imprint, and yours is one of the first books that we're publishing. And so I was there and I did buy a bunch of copies. I've got one of them right here.
Ooh, thank you.
So yeah, I was hoping to get you to sign it.
I know, I'm so sorry.
When you get to Atlanta, but yes, you get sick. That happens. But
I will come down. I will come down just to sign it and we can hang out. How about
and
that?
then just right back to, yeah. So, okay. So lots of questions based on what you were talking about. So I am very curious. Where did you get your master's in counseling?
Yeah, so I got my master's in counseling from Liberty University, but once again, right? So like, I don't know if I feel like you and I might be very similar in this way. It's not that we are utilitarian or like utilitarian in the sense of we just go like, well, if this is how you do it, you just do it. Like, right? Why would you? Who cares if this is the way you do it, right? So I remember when I wanted to go to college for psychology, I just found whatever the best the school with the best department and program was. And it so happened to be an hour or so away from where I lived. I went there. And then when I was going to get my master's, I was like, well, what's the one that I can do best while I'm also working? Well, Liberty had a great online program and it was still accredited and everything. Well, I'll just go there. Right. It's funny because it's not like it's this emotional attachment. It's just like I went there, and people are like, oh, you went there, you did that. I'm like, yeah, because it just fit. Right. So that's what I did.
Got it. Yeah. Well, my wife has a master's in counseling as well. That's why I was curious.
Oh, nice. What is hers specifically like LPC or is it like LMFT? Is it?
I think she's LPC, but
okay.
Hopefully she doesn't watch this and say, dude, you know the answer to that. We've been married for 25 years. So I'm going to give myself a pass on not remembering.
That's fine. Yeah. You've been married long enough that you can forget. It's okay. I give you that.
Yeah. But you were also a former pastor. Is that what I read in your bio?
I was, yes. So I grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor for forever. And I was the youngest of 3 kids. So I got a very, very, I would say in-depth exposure to what it meant to be like in church. My dad, he was a pastor of a smaller church. And then when I became a pastor, I was a pastor of a bigger church, right? So more of like a mega church, quasi mega church. Mm-hmm. And so I got to see, I really got to see all the sides of the different sides of the pulpit, as I call it, And that was also interesting too, because a lot of it was the same thing, right? People were wrestling with the certainty of who they were. And that's why they would sin or whatever. It's just, they just were living that out. And then also too, you see in a way, it's like this joke that pastors' kids are terrible. They always misbehave or whatever. It's because they're living a fishbowl. And it is very true. But the irony now that I've discovered as I've looked more and more into writing for kids is social media and the culture that we live in now is essentially just doing the same thing. Before it was, if your parent worked in a certain industry, that might be the case. But nowadays you are just in that all the time. Right. And then even so, even just kind of thinking about like us as parents, we also offload that onto our kids, not intentionally. Right. So, you look at a lot of stuff has happened in the past few weeks in America, around the world, and you're consuming it and you're looking at it through your phone. And then you unintentionally offload that stress and burden into your kids without even knowing. And that's the hard part is like, we were never meant to carry that much information like what pastors' kids and other kids in those types of industries carry or their parents carry. and are actually like they're trained to do at least. But now everyone carries that kind of information and that burden. And so that was another reason why I'm like, I really need to write books for this, because parents and kids are going through the same type of like crazy gauntlet of carrying information they don't need to, stress, burden, anxiety, all that.
Yeah. Well, it definitely comes through in the book that you have that kind of background, not the pastor necessarily, but the counseling and sort of being able to really think about how people process things. And I love the fact that that you were also the boy in the tree. And so that it's kind of coming directly from you. I'm curious. I'm a big purpose guy. So, I have a personal purpose, and my companies do, and even Ripples does, which is, why we're doing Little Ripples and helping children's authors. So do you have a defined personal purpose?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is the first book I came out with, was You're Missing X Factor, How 5 Minutes Can Change Your Life. Clickbaity, I know. But it was a tool I came out with called Your Mantra, which is who you are at the base value, right? And so your mantra is based on three characteristics that people find most attractive psychologically. It is your certainty, your positivity, and your altruism. And if you can embody those three characteristics, and then also describe yourself within those three characteristics, you will network better, interview better, live better, essentially, just because you'll be operating out of the positive characteristics that make you who you are, rather than the negative, which most people typically just think about. And so my mantra, and so I help people craft what's called a mantra statement, which is kind of like your elevator pitch of who you are. And mine is, I am someone who is energized by being a refreshment to everyone in every interaction, no matter what, right? I never want to burden people. I want to just build them up. And I want people thinking, man, I just can't wait to talk to Joel again, right? Like that the base value is my mantra. And, as a former pastor, a lot of it is based in biblical principles, but I developed it so that the person who's never been in church can see the value in it without being like, oh, you need to know Jesus. It's more like, yeah, I mean, okay, sure. Your negative is you've been around people who are flip-floppy. That's terrible. You never want to be around them, right? Or you've been around people who are just negative all the time. Everything is always something that's wrong, right? Or you always kind of leave feeling like they were just trying to do this for them, right? So if those are you hate those things. So focus on describing yourself in the three positive, and the antithesis of those. And so that's like my purpose is I want to refresh people, and I want people thinking like, I want to hang out with Joel again, not because of, how cool I am, but because of how I've refreshed them in our interactions. Because I'm not cool. I'm really not. I'm a loser.
Yeah, you seem pretty cool to me. Okay, so let's talk about the book. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not necessarily the key audience, but I really did enjoy it, and I'll tell you in a second. What I first want to start with is how different was it, and I'll say like what was easier and what was more difficult, writing a children's book versus writing a business book or a leadership type book.
Man, no, it's honestly a great question. It feels like the best way to answer that is that the business book felt harder because you were trying to marry, nonfiction, right? Like something that's real, and but you had to talk about it, describe it in a way that you felt like would engage people, right? So you still had to storytell, and I felt like you had to actually do better storytelling in that kind of book because you had to continually keep people engaged with your content. Whereas with a kid's book, like it's shorter, so it's a tighter story. But then also it takes on a different element because now it's not just the lyrics or, it's not just the words, it is the illustrations, and they need to match, right? And so again, I've written many songs. Me and my bandmate, we often talk about how, lyrics can be true, but unless they actually like affect you and the music helps bring that out, it will do nothing, right? So lyrics can be great, but if the music is terrible, like it's going to push you away from it being affective, right? And so it's the same thing with if you're writing a kid's book. If the illustrations aren't good, they're going to pull you away from it being as impactful. And so that was a big part, really. I mean, when Ripples was, hey, here's some illustrators, we selected two, and then I wanted to interview both of them. I wanted to sit down with both of them and see, like, do you understand the book? Do you like the idea of the book? But then also there was another element of, can you and I collaborate in a way that feels like we will get the best product out of what we have? or is it going to be kind of like you versus me? And you know, to the credit of both illustrators, one of them did feel like, okay, I think it's going to be me, like it's going to feel like I'm micromanaging that illustrator. And the other one, the one that we went with, Jeff, who's fantastic, right? It was definitely incredibly collaborative. I mean, he and I went back and forth, and it was so simple. I mean, there was little things like at one point we found something really late in the process of continuity, right? It was the guy's sleeves were rolled up in most of the illustrations except for one. And I'm like, well, okay, you can't have his sleeves rolled up and then not rolled up and then rolled up. That's going to, like, it's not going to bug everyone, but it's going to bug some people, and it's bugging me. Like, let's just fix that, right? And it wasn't a micromanaging thing, and Jeff totally got it. He was like, yeah. It needs to be, the continuity needs to be there, right? And so I feel like it really is just, it's a different element, and you have to tap into that creative side, but you also have to be able to let that person, like whoever you're paying to illustrate, you have to let them, you paid them for their style, right? And you need to give them that freedom. And I think sometimes people have a hard time with that, because it is like you've created the words. Now they're going to craft the pictures. You can give them an idea of what you want, but eventually you have to let go and let them create what they are feeling, right? Because hopefully that will be what everyone else feels too when they see it. And I think it's honestly pretty clear in this book, because everyone that picks up the book is like, I love the illustrations. I love like the color palette, which was another reason why I picked Jeff. It's very different, right? It's not just like this typical children's book color palette. You've got the blues, the turquoise, and oranges, right? So yeah, to answer your question, I think it is different on both ends, but it feels like some kind of pull some things out of you in different ways, which was such a non-answer to a question that you just asked.
No, it was good. It's a gorgeous book, I got to say. Like it really came out terrific. So, so if I boil it down to me, and part of what I like about the book is that it speaks to the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
You know, in my mind. So basically, tell me if this is essentially correct. In the book, you know, the boy climbs a tree, gets stuck, has to have his dad come get him. And then that sort of like sticks with him and makes him risk averse,
Yes.
and not willing to sort of stick his neck out there or try something. And then he becomes an adult who has lived his whole life sort of that way. And then
Right.
I don't want to spoil the ending, but, you know, like
Yeah.
rediscovers that, you know, that ability to take risk. And so I think, you know, I guess I'm sort of leading the witness, but like, as you think about what you want kids to learn from this, you know, what is it that you hope kids who read this then do in their life?
I mean, yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. I think really it ultimately comes down to like you have to accept that as you live your life, you will face embarrassment, failure, because you are imperfect, you're weak. We all are weak in some way, right? We are not so strong that we never fail. And if we were to think that, we're only setting ourselves up for the worst type of failure. And what I hope that the book helps kids see is that's part of living and being a kid too. Like you cannot live your life and then only worry about, well, what if something happens and people see and I'm embarrassed? Because if that does happen, then it means you're always going to be changing who you are based on a circumstance, based on what you're thinking, right? Rather than just being yourself. And I think what's hard about that is that there are, like for me, it was I got stuck in the tree and I was super embarrassed, and I hated the embarrassment part, right? Which was something that I laugh about now, because I tell people, like, when you get embarrassed, your temperature doesn't increase like 20 degrees, you get sweaty and like your heart starts beating really rapidly, and people go, no, that never happens. I'm like, so wait, so when you get embarrassed, that doesn't happen? They're like, no. I'm like, that's me. When I get embarrassed, even if it's just something stupid, like I'm in line at a coffee shop and the person misheard me and said, you want 4 shots instead of 2? And I panic and I say, sure, 4, when I never meant 4. I said 2, and now I'm drinking 4 shots of espresso because I panicked, right? This is my wrestle that you see, and I still even wrestle with it. And so the hope for the kids that read this book, and even the parents, is like, are you still stuck in a tree? Like, have you put yourself in that tree and you never came down because you were like, hey, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to be put in that position again, whether it is risk averse, right? But that's the beauty of life, though, is life is meant to be lived taking chances. Like you take chances every day. It's you and me both. If we never took a chance and got married, we never would have had our kids, right? Your kid you talked about is getting into acting, which is awesome. You never would have had a kid who's getting into acting if you never took the chance on getting married and then even having kids, right? And that's taking a chance. But if you always wanted to control a situation where you came out on top, which is what I did, you either never really take a chance or you never really go for something, right? Because you're always trying to control it. And that meant that you're never really all in. You're always going to hedge your bets, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think I can think of three different ways that this can manifest itself into, I don't know, improving people's lives. Obviously, the kid that, reads this or has read this too, they're hopefully going to be more willing to put themselves out there, not take that one swing miss and then, kind of hide from that. You also have obviously the parent or whoever's reading it to them, right? This sinks into them. So they may do things differently in their lives. It's never too late. I'm sure you believe that as well.
Yeah.
And then also, I got to think it helps them parent that way.
Exactly.
And I know, with 5, 6 and 1-year-old at home, like the amount of books you've read, and there's probably times you have used a book you've read with your kid to go, well, remember this. And then the train made it through and like, we can do this. And so like, I just think like this is part of the reason why, Ripples is getting into children's books, because the impact that I think we can make through it, I don't know if it's more powerful, but it seems like it is maybe than, books for adults. And your book is like, I just feel like it's such a great message.
Thank you.
So that we're proud to be a part of it for that reason. Cause I think it's going to make, I think it's going to make some change in people's lives.
Yeah. And I mean, this is why, it's why I write. I mean, if I had a brand, it would be emotional intelligence. It would be building emotional intelligence and focusing on that. So even if, Ripples and I have talked about many books. I can't stop writing. I've tell people all the time, I found what I really love and want to do with the rest of my life. And then I can't stop. Like so I've got another kid's book that will actually come out on that eventually, right? I've already written it. I'm just going back and editing it and fixing it, but it's actually going to be like a sister book, no pun intended, called like The Girl in the House. And it's more for the female side, right? And it's even seeing that, I don't know if your wife is like this, but my wife and my sister are incredibly driven women who are amazing at what they do, that they either either work full-time and are a parent full-time, or at one point did, right? And as a result, what they realized is, I don't know actually how to process emotions as much as I feel like I need to, right? Like I'm expected to, as the mom who is the nurturer. I'm not able, like I thought I could handle my kids' emotions, but I'm not really able to. And then they realize I never was even given those handles when I was younger, because my parents just were like, yeah, whatever, who cares, right? And so it's even a story about that, about a girl who grows up having to process things on her own and realizing later, I actually don't really know how, and I have to learn. And then she's explaining that to her daughter, like, I have to learn too, and we're going to learn together. And that kind of message, which is really what I'm trying to do. I mean, it's just to help the parent better, the kid live their life like a kid should live their lives. And then they hopefully grow closer as a result.
Yeah, no, I love that. I wondered if it was going to be either in the same world. I mean, it's funny you talked about business books and earlier and how that sort of nonfiction side of things can be difficult. Well, I found that with my first book, and I don't know if you've ever read Patrick Lencioni's books.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
He basically writes fables. So they're sort of fictional stories, but they're business, anyways, that's how I write my books. And
I love it.
It's made it easier for me, but I ultimately wrote one and thought that would be it. But like you, I sort of got the bug and kept doing it. So now I've got 6 books. They all live in the same world and characters overlap and it's fun. So anyways, I was curious if your second one was going to connect in that way. Yeah. Is it going to be in the same, like,
yeah. So it's going to be like, and I'm wondering if that's going to be the thing. 'Cause I have other ideas for kids books. But the Girl in the House is definitely like the next one that would go kids launch at least. And then it might be the Boy in the Tree, the Girl in the House. And then the problem is, well, then do I need to like add like a lizard? And I don't know. Do I need to get weird like animals?
But I wonder if the protagonist in this book, like, he's going to just be in the background at school of this girl in the next book. And it's sort of
so good. I didn't even think of that. Just, what? That's like a little Easter egg. That's perfect, Jeff. That was great. No, but like I even think about, so I love I just love storytelling. And so I've actually have to keep myself, and I don't know if this is how you do it, but to keep myself going with writing, I have something that I'm writing in the background that I just absolutely love. And I fell in love with the story that it sounds so like boastful. Oh, look at me, that I came up with, but it's a sci-fi novel. It's like a trilogy. And I already finished the first of the 3 and I'm on the second book. And like, I'm constantly writing that in the background while I'm working on other stuff, because what I think I've learned is I am just one of those people that I need to keep moving. And you know, when you just publish a book, like, it slows down and grinds to a halt, because eventually you're just like, well, you just, you know, you finished and now you're just getting it out. And, you know, unless you're writing something else, you're not doing any more writing. And so I've kind of kept that in the back, and I'm just working on it and working on it and working on it. And it keeps me going. But it's also the same type of thing. It's an emotional intelligence story underneath, but like a sci-fi novel over top of it. So
I love that. Well, let me ask, we're going to lose everyone now because I'm going to geek out on this writing thing for just a moment. We'll circle back.
No, it's fine.
As I said, like with mine, they're basically fictional books, you know, so there's characters and they're doing things or whatever. It's not, you know, certainly what you're writing is it's really actually a book, but, I found myself as I was writing it, almost sitting down and going, I need to know what's going to happen next. Like, let me see excited. What happens. Right.
Yeah.
that was the most interesting thing to me of writing those kind of books, was like, I literally was pumped the next morning to sit down. Yes. I'm like, all right, how are they going to react to that situation? Yeah. And it just sort of comes out. Right.
I love it. I mean, I remember, because I had thought through the 3 books in the sense of, I knew a lot of what the first book was going to be. I knew where it was going to start. I knew where it was going to end. It was going to end on a cliffhanger. I knew that then the next book starts essentially right after that cliffhanger and then ends on another cliffhanger. And then the third one, I was like, I have no idea where that one goes, because I still haven't decided where that one goes. But now I'm in the second book and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, what do we do now? Oh, I guess, like, you know, it's really interesting, because the first book, like, I hit a big stride because I knew parts that I was going to write, and then I would just go. And then now, like you said, I'm in uncharted territory. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the same thing as I'm working on more of these kids books, because as more people have loved this, and I think that they're going to love The Girl in the House too, when that eventually comes out, it's like, do I go all in on that, or do I go with what I was thinking for the other kids book idea, which was going to be a series, which is kind of like emotional intelligence, but like playing on the cultural significance and phenomenon of like AI. So AI learning emotional intelligence kind of thing. Anyway. But yeah, like, I just love it. I literally cannot stop. And I had someone tell me the other day that storytelling is a gift. And we don't encourage people who are really good at storytelling to use that gift. We've really gotten away from that. We've kind of like propped up movie stars and actors and singers and all these people. But we've really gotten away from telling people, like, hey, you're just a really good storyteller. That's a gift. When you find something in a natural phenomenon and you pull meaning from it and then convey it in a way that's effective, not everyone does that. Mm-hmm. Like, you and I are very different from a lot of people, you know? So like, I was with my son watching Rain, and I remember, did you ever watch Magic School Bus? It's going to sound so silly.
Well, I certainly have seen it with my kids. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I remember growing up on Magic School Bus and watching the water cycle show when they talk through the water cycle. And I was like, I thought, how cool would it be if you wrote a book about the water cycle, but it was about how change has to happen in your life. And if you resist change, that's when you experience things like anxiety and mental health issues, because life is meant to go through change, like water is meant to go through the water cycle. And it doesn't necessarily get bad or better. It just changes. Mm-hmm. And part of change is good. It is neutral. It is neither bad nor good, but the act of doing it is good for you. Right. And so I was even thinking about that. And my friend was like, not everyone thinks like that. They just see rain. That's fair. That's a good point.
I think, you know, once you get into this world, you're seeing ideas and lessons sort of everywhere. And you're able to pull that. And when you can connect it to real world life type things, I think that's when it becomes more powerful. Are you a big reader?
So that's the thing. I mean, the problem is now, I mean, you know how it is. I have a 6, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old.
That's a lot.
And a job and all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's not like I have a ton of time to read. So really the time that I do have, I'm just spending writing now.
Yeah.
But in the past, yes, I would read all the time. I loved fiction. I was the kid that read, I was a lifeguard for a lot of summers, and I would read the Harry Potter books one summer and then like the Narnia books the other summer. And I would just read it while I was lifeguarding on break. And I loved it. I loved that. read nonfiction when I worked in the church, especially when I was in school. I'd read a lot for counseling, and so I loved that. But now, now I do not have the time, and I've had to be.
Now you're reading children's books to your kids when you have a
yes,
moment.
Exactly.
Are there any books that you that inspire you on this science fiction trilogy you're working on?
Yeah, honestly, C.S. Lewis did one. He did a sci-fi trilogy that was actually really cool. And then just I love it was actually the reason I had the story was a dream. I had a dream that was kind of based on Starship Troopers, which is an old stupid movie. And I had an idea about it, and then I just kind of chased that idea, and it was really, it's actually a very close to home message of when you've gone through significant loss in your life, and then you have no way to get closure, and then everyone's expecting you to just kind of rise to the occasion, but you never asked for it. What do? You know, that's just, I think that happens a lot to people in real life, right? No one asks to be the person, but then they go through some traumatic loss, and then they're not able to even get the work and closure, and then they still have to function. So what does that even look like? So that's kind of where it comes from. I mean, we could geek out. Trust me. I love talking about this story because it's one of my favorite stories that I've ever come up with.
I love it. Maybe for part 2 we'll do that.
Yes.
You've got me so curious. But
I
know you're still working.
And I love talking about it because I'm so excited about it. Like I said, like you said, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm still exploring it. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, last question for you. Is there anything that maybe I didn't ask you about the book or your journey or anything that you'd like to share that you wish I'd asked?
No, honestly, no. I think you've asked all the questions. It's interesting. I'm so thankful for, and I think this is why I love Ripples so much. I got connected with them through a friend of a friend. And what I love so much about Ripples is that they have seen in me not like the dollar sign or the means to an end, but more like a person to journey with. Because I came to them when I first talked to them, I was like, I am working on a sci-fi novel. I am working on a kid's book. I have all these other books that I'm thinking about too. And I was like, and I'm not going to publish them. I am going to, and I need to know that you're in it. Like, you're not just gonna be like, hey, let's just stay to kids' books. Like, that's all we're going to do. Right. Or, but you want me as an author. And as we got to know each other, like, we just love you as an author. So just go, and we'll go with you. And that's what I've loved, because I think what's the hardest part is in today's world, it's so difficult because of it. You don't feel like you actually really have someone in your corner, because social media, no one's really in your corner. People just like something. That's not being in your corner. Being in your corner is someone looking at you and going like, hey, like, everything that you're doing, I am in love with and I support. And I know it's going to be like this, but the person who's in that I'm with, I love, and I'm with you. So let's do it. Right. That's someone in your corner. And to have Ripples say that to me when I was really wrestling with, funnily enough, do I go all in? Right. Like, if I go all in and not hedge my bets anymore, I have a greater risk of being embarrassed and failing. Right. Or I go all in and it's a huge success, or whatever, right? Whatever success means. And having Ripples be that person in my corner meant that I could go all in. And I've seen nothing but success in the way that I really think that it really means. It's people being touched and lives being changed, specifically adults reading the book as they read to their kids, going, yeah, like, I'm totally that person. I'm totally the boy in the tree. And I'm going, exactly like that. That is what I wanted you to hear. I wanted you to get, and we're there. So, so shout out to Ripples. I mean, they took a chance on me, and I'm only ever just trying to continually make it up to them, and not that I owe them, but just like, I want to do this together. Let's journey together.
That's awesome, man. Well, I love to hear that. I did not expect that answer, but the team has loved working with you. I know that much. And as we thought about just overall what we're trying to build with Ripples, it's building a community and working with authors that, have a story to tell that we think is going to inspire positive change, that we can be a partner with for the long term, so really appreciate you sharing all that. And thanks for joining me on the podcast. I'm going to be
Yes.
psyched to have you come to Atlanta, and I'll
Yes.
get that signed book finally. And
Well, like, you can pick a great place for us to eat. I mean, I can always convince my wife. I mean, maybe,
all right.
but I'll be like, hey, I got to meet with Jeff. We're getting food. I don't know. I'll finagle something.
I love it. I will definitely do that, Joel. Well, listen, thanks again. I'll put in the show notes here for everybody to go buy the book. I suggest buying a bunch of them, bring them to your library, bring them to the school, you know, so that they can be in the library there. Like, it's awesome, man. I'm really proud that we're associated with it.
Thank you so much. And hey, seriously, I let's talk again so we can talk about sci-fi stuff, because
Dude,
I'm waiting to do that.
Sounds great. Good to see you, Joel.
All right, Jeff, have a great one.